Lie, 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 la 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 lie, 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 la 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 lie, 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 ya lie, la lie, lie, la 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 lie, lie, lie. Lie, 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 la, 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 lie, lie, la, la, lie, 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 la, 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 lie, 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 la, 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 lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 la, lie, 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 la, 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 lie, 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 la, lie, 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 la, 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 lie, 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 ya, la, 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 lie, 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 ya, lie, 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 ya, la, 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 lie, 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 lie. Ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Greetings to all of you in person and all of you watching online. I hope you've had a pleasant start to your new year. The flowers, the real flowers tonight, which are lovely, are donated by Joel Lowenstein in honor of his wife Devorah's birthday. Happy birthday, Devorah, and also happy anniversary to you and Joel, both on the same day. And the virtual flowers tonight are sponsored by Ted and Noel Singer in memory of Ted's father. As a reminder, this fundraiser, short and easy way to raise a little money by providing the virtual flowers, and all of you watching on YouTube get to see them where all of us who are here in person don't. So I encourage you to please sponsor virtual flowers, and also remember that we have shout outs if you're celebrating a special occasion. It's a very easy way for us to raise money. As you are aware, food service has been suspended in the temple, so please be sure we have some grab-and-go bags for you to take as you exit the temple, just as a way to celebrate the Oneg as best we can. And of course, everything that serves food has been postponed or canceled, which included our Brotherhood Tu B'Shvat falafel lunch. Looking forward to when that restarts. It's been 3 years since I had the delicious falafel, and I miss it very much. I think that was all my reminders. Thank you, as always, to our professional staff, Rabbi Mark, Cantor Ken, and Dr. Ray at the Clavinova, and our technical staff tonight, Phil Carey in Washington, and my charming husband, Chris Jastrock, at the controls here in La Mirada. I wish you all Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Dina. Dina, thank you for those announcements. Welcome, everyone. Shabbat Shalom to you all. In addition to those announcements, for those of you...
Rabbi, you're not on.
I'm not on? You're not on?
I'm not on.
Okay. Okay, sorry.
Testing, 1, 2.
Okay, there.
Testing, 1, 2. Yep. Here? Okay. Sorry for those of you watching at home and watching from the comfort of your home. I invite you to go ahead and get yourself ready for our Kiddush and candles. Perhaps pour yourself a glass of wine or juice or other favorite beverage, and also have a chance to set out some candles for the upcoming celebrations for Shabbat when we get to that point. In addition, we have Shabbat Shalom greetings from Rita and Rob Rubin, Jeff and Wilma Shear, and Diane Shartoff Jennings. And I wish to acknowledge that Jeff is a past president of our congregation and member of our temple board. And as you heard, the virtual flowers by the Singer family in memory of Moshe ben Yitzchak Hirsch, Ted's father. And for you, Devorah, we have our world famous, literally world famous now, as we stream, our world famous birthday certificate, which is on its way to you, courtesy of the U.S. Postal Service. God of days and years, author of life, we thank you for the blessings of life and for all that enriches our lives. We gather today to share in the happiness of Devorah Lowenstein in celebration of her 85th birthday. May Devorah be blessed with health and happiness and with the strength to overcome sickness and sorrow. With your presence at her side, may Devorah be blessed to see her world in her lifetime. May Devorah's heart act wisely, her lips speak wisdom, and her tongue whisper songs. May her vision always be toward the future, her eyes shine with the light of Torah, her face glow like the splendor of the heavens. May Devorah be blessed with wholeness, contentment, peace, and above all with shalom, celebrated this 6th day of Shabbat, the 17th day of January, in the presence of your congregation, signed by myself, our president, and our cantor. Devorah, this is on its way to you as we join with our cantor in the singing of Siman Tov u'Mazel Tov in celebration of your very special birthday, and indeed you and Joel celebrating your anniversary this month as well.
Siman Tov u'Mazel Tov u'Mazel Tov Siman Tov u'Mazel Tov u'Mazel Tov Siman Tov u'Mazel Tov u'Mazel Tov Siman Tov Yehelanu Ulecho Yisrael Yehelanu Ulecho Yisrael Yehelanu Ulecho Yisrael Yehelanu Ulecho Yisrael.
Mazel tov to you, Devorah, and Joel, mazel tov to you both. Our service begins on page 9 in our prayer books. For those of you viewing, we've been tweaking our slides a little bit. Hopefully you will find the graphics easier to read. I invite you to shoot me an email. Let me know how we're doing as we continue to step up our technical components of our streaming service. There are days when we seek things for ourselves and measure failure by what we do not gain. We read together, on Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share. There are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be exhausted. Together, on Shabbat, we stand in wonder before the mystery of creation. There are days when we act as if we cared nothing for the rights of others. On Shabbat,
we remember that justice is our duty and a better world our goal.
And so we embrace the Shabbat, a day of rest, a day of wonder, a day of peace. We continue with L'chu Naranana, a version of which you can find on page 12 in your Sidurim. L'chu Naranana, Yai Lai
lai, 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 la, Adonai, lai, 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 la, la, lai, Naria, yai, lai, 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 Litzur Yish'enu, lai, 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 la, la, lai. Let us sing out to God, the maker of all, broad and strong. Let all of creation from mountain to sea hear God's song. Lechu neranena, lai, 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 la, Adonai, lai, 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 la, la, lai, Naria, lai, 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 Litzur Yish'enu, lai, 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 la, la, lai. For all of the wonders and all of God's might, we rejoice. So now let us listen with all of our hearts to hear God's voice. Lechu neranena, lai, 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 la, Adonai, lai, 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 la, la, lai, Naria, yai, lai, 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 Litzur Yish'enu, lai, 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 la, lai, lai.
I invite Joe and Sharon Gorin to join the Cantor and I on the Bima in the lighting of our Shabbat candles as we turn in our prayer books to page 3. Who's reading English?
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us, and their brightness reminds us of the generation of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom. Thanks, Joe.
Our service continues on page 5 with the words of our Kiddush, toasting the joy of this Shabbat with juice or wine or your other favorite beverage.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedishanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ava uv'ratzon hinchilanu zikaron le'maseh v'reshit. Yom Techila Lemikra Kodesh Zeichel Yitziat Mitzrayim Kivanu v'charata ve'otanu Kidashta mikol hamim Shabbat kodshecha be'ava uvratzon hinchalatanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat.
Right?
Okay.
Our service continues on page 27. Entrances to holiness are everywhere. The possibility of ascent is all the time, even at unlikely times and through unlikely places. There is no place on earth without the presence. We continue on page 28 with the words of our Baruch Hu, as I invite us to rise as we are able.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Our service continues on page 30. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chochma poteach she'arim, uvitvona meshane itim umachalif et hazmanim, umsader et hakochavim, b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono. Borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or. Uma'avir yom umevi laila, umavdil ben yom uvein laila, Adonai tzavot shemo. El chai v'kayam, tamid yimlo chalenu leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. We continue on page 33 as we read responsively. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and a symbol.
All these things your Torah gives to us.
And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives.
What could be a truer token of your abiding love
than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Please be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך. לה 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 והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך. לה 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 ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבת המזוזות ביתך, המזוזות ביתך, ובשעריך.
Our service continues on page 39. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. We continue with the words of our Michamocha.
Michamocha b'heinim Adonai, lai 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 lai. כמוך נדר בקודש לי 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 la 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 מלכותך רעובנך בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים זלינו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד לה 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 לה
Our service continues on page 43. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lay down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, hapurei sukat shalom aleinu, v'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city. But prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, and rebuild a weakened will. We continue with the words of our tefillah on page 46 and following. I invite us to sit for a moment. Let this melody and these words bring us into our time of prayer. Thus we might better open our hearts and our minds to the potentials these prayers offer us. We take a moment as we ease into our tefillah. Adonai, Svatai tiftach,
na 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 Ufi Yagid Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha na 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 Adonai na 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 Svatai Tiftach na 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 Yagid Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha na 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 Adonai na 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 Svatai Tiftach na 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 Ufi Yagid Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha na 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 Adonai na 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 Svatai Tiftach na 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 Ufi Yagid Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu ve'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor ve'Hanora El Elyon Gomer Chasadim Tovim Ve'koneh hakol Ve'zocher chasdei avot ve'imahot Umevi geula livnei v'neihem Lema'an shemo be'ahava Melech ozer u'moshia u'magen Baruch ata Adonai Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah Ata gibor le'olam Adonai Mechaye hakol ata Rab le'hoshia Mashiv haruach Umorid hagashem Mechalkel chayim bechesed Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim Zomech nofelim verofech olim Umatir asurim Umekayem emunato Lishenei afar Micha mocha bal gevurot Umidom elach Melech meimit umechayeh Umatmiach Yeshua V'ne'eman atal chayot hakol Baruch ata Adonai Mechayeh hakol Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh Ukadoshim b'chol yom yahalelucha selah Baruch ata Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh.
We continue on page 53. Days pass and the years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. God, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Let there be moments when your presence, like lightning, illumines the darkness in which we walk. Help us to see wherever we gaze that the bush burns unconsumed, and we, clay touched by God, will reach out for holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe is this place, and we did not know it. We may be seated. Our service continues on page 56.
Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu be'amecha Yisrael u'tefilatam be'ahava tekabel u'tehil ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael Yisrael amecha el karov lechol korav penei el avadecha vechonenu shefoch rochacha aleinu v'techezena einenu b'shuvecha leTzion berachamim baruch atah Adonai hamachazir shechinato
Our service continues on page 57. You are with us in our prayer, in our love, and in our doubt, in our longing to feel your presence and to do your will. You are the still, clear voice within us. Therefore, O God, when doubt troubles us, when anxiety makes us tremble, when pain clouds our minds, let us look inward for the answers to our prayers. There may we find you, and there may we find courage, insight, and endurance. And let our worship bring us closer to one another, that all Israel and all who seek you may find new strength for your service. Baruch atah Adonai, sholtecha levadecha b'yirah na'avod. Our service continues on page 60.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leholam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leholam. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav ישראל עמך תשים לעולם, וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם, שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם, תשים לעולם, תשים לעולם.
We extend our prayers for peace to all those who have found their peace disturbed, their well-being perhaps even shattered by the challenges they are facing to their health. Our friends, our families, members of our congregation. In a moment, the Cantor will lead us in our Mishaberach, our prayers for hope and healing. And I offer this prayer for all those who are facing challenges to their health and their well-being. Mishaberach avotenu v'imotenu. May the one who blessed our ancestors be with those who are facing challenges to their health, their bodies, and their minds. May God's wisdom continue to inspire the hands of the doctors and the nurses and all who care for them. And may those who care for them with their hearts and their hands find strength, courage, and endurance. I invite you to share aloud the name of a loved one whom you'd like to bring into this prayer for hope and for healing. Baruch atah Adonai rofei hacholim. We praise you, O God, who helps us bring hope and healing to those who are in need. And let us say, Amen.
שפרח אבותינו אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, מי שברך אמותינו שרה, רבקה, לאה ורחל. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. Bless us with the power of your healing. Bless us with the power of your hope. May our hearts be filled with understanding and strengthened by the power of your love. Misheberach avotenu Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. Misheberach imotenu Sarah, Rivka, Leah, Rachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well.
We take this opportunity to pause from the words on our prayer books, the words on our screens. We pause from reading, from singing, so that we might instead just be for a moment, to listen to the words and the melodies from deep within our hearts. We take this opportunity of silent meditation or such other prayer as the heart may prompt.
Shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Se shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Se shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
As always, Cantor, thank you for the music, the melodies, and the ruach that you bring to our services. Ray, well, we welcome another year together. Yeah. This is 22. So this will be our 14th year. Yeah, post bar mitzvah.
Yeah.
That means we have to keep working towards confirmation. You know, we don't end after 13. So there'll be some more. I found myself somewhat taken aback by my preparations for our Shabbat morning Torah study tomorrow by a verse in this week's Torah portion. I found myself identifying with an unexpected biblical character. I mean, of all the men and women in our Torah and our Tanakh, there are many that at various times I have felt a certain affinity to. Abraham with the uncertainness of where he was headed, Jacob in the fears of inadequacy, Deborah in having to make decisions and judging, with and for the people. And so various characters have always jumped out of the text, but this one kind of surprised me. I never thought that I would feel a connection to Pharaoh. But in this week's Torah portion, Pharaoh utters a phrase that That caught my eye. Now, of course, we have to understand that the character of Pharaoh in the Torah is very complex. I mean, we first meet Pharaoh back in Genesis. Abraham and Sarah have to leave the land of Canaan to go to Egypt because there is a drought there in Canaan. Abraham says to Sarah, look, you're a very beautiful woman, and if they think you're my wife, they're going to kill me. And so please tell them you're my sister. Well, all right, Abraham, maybe that's a strike against you. But anyway, and so Pharaoh sees this beautiful woman and takes her into his harem. And lo and behold, his household is suddenly plagued. All kinds of things are going wrong in Pharaoh's palace. And he figures that it must have something to do with Sarah, so he hauls Abraham in and says, what is going on? Abraham breaks down and says, well, she is my wife. And the Pharaoh we meet in Genesis is a man of honor and integrity. And he does not kill Abraham. Instead, he challenges Abraham and chastises him. This is a terrible thing you have done. I almost made her one of my wives. This is not good. Shame on you. And gives Sarah back to Abraham, as well as some payment for any inconvenience that may have been caused. Well, that's quite an honorable Pharaoh, but the Pharaoh in this week's Torah portion is the one we read about in our Haggadah, the one that we encounter during our Passover Seder. It is the new king who rises over Egypt who did not know Joseph. Thus far, in our Torah portion, Pharaoh and the Egyptians have suffered through 7 of the 10 plagues. The 8th plague, the plague of locusts, begins early on in the Torah portion. And as the locusts are devouring whatever is left, food-wise and whatnot, in the land of Egypt, Pharaoh he orders Moses and Aaron to appear, and he says to them, remove this death from me. Remove this death from me. After seeing the devastation that has taken place, after witnessing the crumbling of his entire empire, Pharaoh, for this brief moment, is overwhelmed. He has, I'm obviously reading into our text here because the Torah doesn't tell us this, but I can imagine that Pharaoh is just sick and tired of everything that has taken place. He is fed up with it and just wants it to end. Remove this death from me, he says. And of course, the winds come and blow the locust away, and Pharaoh slips back to his old behavior, which just brings to light that even in the midst of his angst and pain and realization that this has just got to end, Pharaoh was just as much enslaved as were the ancient Israelites. Remove this death from me. As I look around at this continuing pandemic, those were the words that struck me. Remove this death from me. I'm sick and tired of seeing the numbers of COVID patients. I'm sick and tired of hearing my chaplain colleagues as they prepare for another inundation in the hospitals. I can only imagine the doctors and the nurses and how frazzled they must be. We who are not in the hospital, we who are able to return to our home, we who are able to distance ourselves from this plague upon us. It's kind of hard to imagine those who are working the front lines facing this every single minute of their working days. Remove this death from me. So many have died in this country and across the world. And yes, we're in a pandemic, and I'm sick and tired of it. but I know that this pandemic is not going to end in the immediacy. I know that we are going to continue to face this. And this is where I depart from Pharaoh. Because as much as Pharaoh was enslaved to his remaining consistent with keeping the Israelites enslaved in Egypt and ultimately bringing about the demise and the ultimate destruction of everything Pharaoh stood for, he is trapped in his ways. We are not trapped. Slaves have no choice. They have no choice. They have to do what their master tells them to do. They are not able to make a choice. Pharaoh, as we learn on this unfolding disaster upon his people and his kingdom, is likewise unable to make a choice because he is trapped. But we are not trapped. We are able to make a choice. And the choice we have to make is how we respond to these continuing days. As much as we all hoped this would be over, the experts told us back in 2020 that we will be playing whack-a-mole with this pandemic for years. And so let us not lose sight of that. As much as I want everything to go back to the way it is, the way it was, we have to accept life as the way it is. We have to make that choice. We have to do all that we can to ensure our safety and the safety of our community. It's not enough for me to just watch out for myself. I have to watch out for those who are next door to me. I have to watch out for those who are part of my community. That's what it means to be in a community. Pharaoh made the mistake of thinking everything would be just fine. We could go back to the way that it was before all of those plagues hit Egypt, once he got to the troublesome Moses and Aaron and whatever that plague of the moment was out of his life. We are not slaves to our past, nor are we slaves to our present. And as much as I wanted this death to be removed from me, I know that it's got to run its course, and I have to continue to be vigilant. Like Pharaoh, I must strengthen my heart, or unlike Pharaoh, whose heart was hardened and unable to make a choice, I have to strengthen my heart in order to be able to persevere. We all have to find a way to strengthen our hearts. This is going to be with us for a while, and the more that we can brace ourselves for that, the better prepared we shall be. As they say in the military, you plan for you hope for the best, but you plan for the worst. And so let us hope for the best, but let us also make plans for what our life is going to be like when we get to 2023 and still have to wear a mask, and still have to get our vaccines and our boosters, and still have to deal with this pandemic. I hope it will end before then. But the pandemic is going to end in its own time. And as much as I want to remove this death from my life, I have to embrace the life that I have and the times in which I live. So let us not make the mistake of Pharaoh and think that we will be going back to the way it was as soon as the numbers start to drop. Because we've been there and the numbers come back up. We're going to play whack-a-mole with this. Let us take the words of our scripture to heart. Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. Let us each be strong, and as we are strong, let us strengthen each other. Shabbat shalom, everyone. On this Shabbat, being the first Friday in January, we want to acknowledge happy events that are taking place. Obviously, as our pandemic response is to maintain our safety. Many of you might be at home who are celebrating these birthdays and anniversaries, but if anybody here is celebrating a birthday or anniversary in the month of January, I invite you to join the Cantor and I here on the Bima so that we might acknowledge that in person. And for those of you at home who are celebrating a birthday or an anniversary, if you would stand for a moment, we would like to be able to acknowledge those birthdays and anniversaries that are taking place. In particular, we wish to acknowledge the anniversaries of members of our congregation, Neil and Iris Tessler, Joel and Devorah Lowenstein, Alan and Carol Volan, Philip and Susan Carey, Howard and Fidel Huffman, Robert Block and Sandra Madrid, and Arthur and Irene Krieger. Wonderful. Mazel tov to you on your anniversaries. And for those who are celebrating birthdays this month, including Josh Levy, Willow Laverenda, Devorah Lowenstein, David Scharf, Arthur Krieger, Robin Fox, Greg Mayton, Marlene Fink, Lori Cudler, Jay Silverman, Shaul Salisbury, Alan Volan, Don Ford, Carl Nolte, Carl Nolte, sorry about that, Carl. Carl Nolte, Peggy Horowitz, Sally Kravitz, Sandy Strauss, Ellis Porter, Helen Cohen, Larry Polikoff, Shayna Charles, Howard Lefton, Derek Johnson, Alex Horowitz, Devorah Lemus, and Jacob Cudler. So my goodness, all of those birthdays, all of those anniversaries, our pandemic teaches us, let us celebrate life even amidst the painful things that are going on around us. And we do so with the words of our Shehechianu, praising God for giving us life, sustaining us, and enabling us to celebrate these wonderful events.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechayanu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechayanu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman
Mazel tov to everybody celebrating a birthday, anniversary, a mortgage burning, a final car payment, a student loan payoff, whatever happy event it is in January. Celebrate it with mucho gusto. With that, we move to the conclusion of our worship service. With the words of our Aleinu, the adoration can be found in our prayer books on page 282. And I invite us to rise as we are able as we continue with our adoration.
Aleinu לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. אנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
Our thoughts now turn to those who have departed this earth, those who live on in our hearts, in our memories, and in the place we call Olam Haba, the world to come. We call to mind one for whom we are observing, not just one, we call to mind two for whom we are observing the Shivan Shloshim period. Marvin Asnes, the Fred of Ted and Terry Levoot, and Ralph Goldstein, the brother of Eddie Goldstein. And our hearts go out to you in the immediacy of your family members and friends in their deaths. To their names, we link the names of those whose yahrzeits have occurred during this past week: Max Jacobson, Janice Pivo, Kayla Greenspan, Beatrice Caesar, Ian Shine, Joy Ann Seidemann, Ronald Mark Zaret, Pearl Melnick, Sandra Pascas, Stanley Roman, Joseph E. Austin, Seymour Levinson, David Gomberg, Larry Altanu, Rose Gilwarg, Haru Nojima, Sam Koenig, Joan Hershkowitz, Dwayne Craven, Andrew Havas, George Shaw, Norma Rosenbaum, and Jack Dunn. To those names, we link the names of those for whom we are observing the Kaddish period: John Young, Gerald Kotkin, Ross B. Shear, Jenna Gordon, Doug Austin, Edith Chess, Berta Ursus, Ann Phillips, Malcolm Dipperstein, Mark Bornstein, Leah Levine, Vicky Emery, Sheldon Zinberg, Evelyn Levin, Gloria Austin, Dee Dee Ginter, Dorothy Bernard, Molly Shartoff, Erica Cherie Barnes, Kayla Goldstein, Craig Wilford, Fred Fink, and Joyce Ulibari. If there's a loved one whom you are remembering, I invite you to share that name at this time. To those that we have named aloud and to those that we keep named in the quiet places of our hearts and memories, we link as well the names and memories of the men and women of our armed forces who have given their lives for our liberties and our freedoms. Those who have given their lives for our safety here at home, members of our police, our firefighters, and other first responders, and all those in the medical professions as well, and to the members of the Israeli Defense Forces who have given their lives for the hope of peace. In addition, we acknowledge the over 850,000 Americans who have died from COVID-19, and just this past week, the 759 Americans who died by gun violence. Zichronam levracha. May their memories be a blessing and inspire us to build a better world in our tomorrow. So we continue with the words of our Kaddish, which you can find on page 292 in your prayer books. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba, v'yalma divrach yiritei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru. Amen. Shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam ulalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal, shmei d'kadasha b'richu, le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama Rabba min shmaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru. Amen.
Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru. Amen.
We conclude our service with the singing of Adonolam, which you can find in your prayer books on page 321. For those who needs the words, if you are comfortable with putting your arms around someone sitting next to you, or the hands of someone sitting next to you, or put your arms around the shoulder of someone standing next to you, feel free to do so as we conclude with Adonolam.
Adonolam Hashem alach b'terem kol Yitzir nivra le'ed nasa v'chefzo kol Azai melech shemo nikra ve'acharei kichlot hakol levado yimloch nora ve'hu haya ve'hu hove ve'hu yeh betifara ve'hu echad ve'en sheni להמשיל לו להכבירה בלי ראשית בלי תכלית ולא העוז והמשרה והוא עלי וחי גואלי וצוחב לי בעת צרה והוא ניסי ומנוס לי מנת כוסי ביום אקרא בידו אפקיד רוחי בעת אישן ועירה ואם רוחי גוויעתי אדוני לי ולא יירא.
From that final word of Adonolam, Adonai li velo ira. Adonai is with me, and I will not be afraid. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
And Yashar Koch.